Hello everyone, this is Hearthstone Meta Hype. I am eCore100 with my friend Venga. How's it going, Venga?
I am hyped, brother. Let's do this.
So, I'm hyped, but it's for something different. Other than, obviously the discussion we're going to have, which is going to be super duper great. You should stick around for that. But we have merch now, or at least I do. And there will be a code in the description. It'll be eCore5, and there will also be a link. You basically just take that link, and you'll get a discount if you use my code for whatever you end up purchasing there. So I'm actually pretty excited for that. Yeah. And there's anything I missed you want to add on?
No, man, that's the thing. Well, yes, there is some things that I want to add on. The thing is we're at a team competition. eCore and I are going to sell the most t-shirts in Hype Horizon. Link in the description below. The code is eCore5, and we'll get that going. So just get your tees and make us win, because we want to do ourselves proud and take home victory.
No, yeah, because we do this show together, and we're teaming up.
We are teaming up against everybody, against the world. But thanks, guys. Seriously, let's do this and let's get into the topic. I think it's got to be Mage, right, eCore? It's got to be.
Yeah, the topic is definitely going to be about Mage, but I'm not going to just be negative about it. I want to actually go into why it's kind of a problem, why it wasn't a problem before, and why it was actually more of a fun card before. And by the card, I mean Deck of Lunacy and Spell Mage in general. And yeah, I just want to talk about that and not just complain. There will definitely be complaining. Obviously, it's warranted. It makes up 55% of the meta. And it's absolutely ridiculous, and you can't play around random cards. But that aside, I want to talk about the underlying issues with it and how it could be nerfed, in my opinion, in order to make it less oppressive, but still viable-ish.
I agree. Yeah, I totally understand. I mean, the deck is it is exactly what it is called. Deck of Lunacy. It's complete lunacy. It's borderline idiotic, and it's super unfun to play against. And for the one reason, I'll just want to jump in and say the reason why I think this deck is so unfun to play against is the exact thing that you really can't plan for the randomness, and it's the probability is not there. So it takes away a lot of the skill on both sides, and it's pretty sucky when you see something like a 10 mana spell being bashed over your head on turn 5, because not only do you get to get the buff up, because the spells transform into spells that are 3 cost more, but then you can bring them down with the fresh spring water and they become lower mana. So it's just a complete mana cheat, complete crazy, complete lunacy.
No, yeah. I actually 100% agree. It's absolutely ridiculous. But the one thing I disagree with kind of is when you said it's you can't play around. Some of the stuff is just RNG, because you said there were 10 mana cards. There are only 2 10 mana spells in the game: Survival of the Fittest and the Grand Slam. So that their late game bomb is probably going to be one of those 2. The issue in that case isn't necessarily the RNG and not being able to counter it. It's like you said, them being able to get it out on turn 6. A 10 mana spell turn 6 that either pumps up your whole board +4/+4 or gets you 4 3/5s that all go face is absolutely ridiculous in my opinion. And the worst part is, because it's not RNG, because there are only 2 of them, it's going to happen too. You literally just sit there, and there have been games where I'm sitting there, arms crossed, kind of in a bad mood, and I'm just well, he played Incanter's Flow, or whatever it's called. That Incanter's Flow is the one that reduces cost by 1, right?
Yes.
Well, he played Incanter's Flow after he played Deck of Lunacy. It's turn 6. Gonna get in a Grand Slam this turn, and then there's about a 5-second pause, and then I get in a Grand Slammed and take 12 damage, and he gets a whole board of minions. And it's gonna happen. You just can't counterplay it.
Yeah.
But that leads into the thing I wanted to talk about, which is the fact that there isn't as much RNG to it now, right? Pretty consistently what you're going to get. If you Incanter's Flow first, there's only 1 9 mana spell in the game, and it's Libram of Hope. You're going to get that every single time if you Deck of Lunacy after playing Incanter's Flow. You know that you're going to get in a Grand Slam or Survival of the Fittest. And just the pool of spells is so much smaller, and all of the spells are so much better now that the spells 2 years ago left, because they were on average worse in my opinion.
Yeah.
That it just ends up with being this.
Let me just interject, though. There is the same amount of RNG, and I think that this is kind of an interesting subtopic here, but RNG is RNG. It's random number generation. That's what it stands for. The random number generation is exactly the same. You can't have more or less RNG. It's fixed.
I mean, statistically, you're more likely to get
Let me finish my point.
Cards now.
Let me finish my point. The probability is there. So when you say to me that you can't play around something, and you kind kind of know it's coming, the probability of it being there is higher. It's
Yeah.
more probable that you're going to be facing the Grand Slam. But I just wanted to
Well,
point that out.
that's what I meant.
Yeah, I know that. But the thing is, though, I know you like, hey, come on, man, you're smart. I know that you know the deal. But I think it's just something that the audience needs to know as well, too, that you're talking about probability,
RNG
not
and
RNG.
probability are two different things.
Yeah, that's all.
I just use them interchangeably because we talk about RNG and Hearthstone just a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, you bring up a good point. It is not the RNG itself, but it's the probability of any given card that is changing, not the RNG. Like, even if you get a 4-mana spell off of a 1-cost card, it's more likely, like, probability-wise, to be something like Fireball now, which means that you just get more burn. And even just something small like that, having a twice as likely probability to get Fireball as you were before, that means you're twice as likely to take 6 damage to the face. And I don't know, that's the underlying problem. And that's the problem that also happens with Font of Power. That's the problem that also happens with the Pexus Blast. And also Jandis. Jandis isn't in this deck, but it's the same idea. The pool of cards is much smaller, so you're more likely to get good 5-drops or good mage minions off of those cards, because the only cards left are really like good mage minions, especially with power creep. The cards from 2 years ago are significantly weaker than some of the cards coming out now, which means that it's just all around. The reason why Deck of Lunacy was balanced is because it had those other weaker cards that you could pull. Like, it had that stupid, dude, when I'd play a Pexus Blast and I'd get that 0/5 obelisk that's basically do nothing, I'd get so upset, but that doesn't exist anymore. And there also, you can't get that stupid little like 0/3 egg that does nothing, and a couple of those other cards.
Yeah.
Now there's just a 5-mana 1/1, the one that, you know, that's Demon Hunter and Hunter. I forget its name, nobody plays it, but it's a 5-mana 1/1 that gets pumped up in your hand when minions die. That's the worst option. And that worst option is better than the other 2 options because at least it can attack for 1 damage. Like, it's not just a do nothing card. So its worst option is better than the worst option before, and on average the cards are just better.
Yeah, I totally
So what are your
understand
thoughts on
that.
all that?
Yeah, that makes complete sense, and it's exactly what we said before. We've always said this is that the cards that are surrounding the card that is problematic are more of the problem than the card itself. The reason why it wasn't a problem before is exactly what you said.
But it's hard to nerf every card around Deck of Lunacy because of that, or Apex's Blast or Font Power. So it's just easier to nerf those cards, because I've read on Twitter and I've talked to people on Twitter because they're like, just let it be broken for 4 months, because then when more stuff comes out and the probability of getting these different cards goes down because there are going to be more cards coming out, it'll eventually fix itself. But like, I don't want to be stuck in a meta of this for 4 months until the next expansion or even the mini set comes out and there's like a slight change, unless the cards that come out in the mini set are just objectively terrible and fill the pool of that mage deck with actual garbage. Just in general, I don't, because like, yeah, they are right, it will eventually fix itself because of the probability, but it's just not worth the wait. Like, we could just nerf the cards now and then maybe revert the nerf in like an expansion or 2 when there's a bigger pool of spells to like bring some hype back to that card before it goes out of rotation, like they did with a lot of the other cards, like Alexstrasza and the Galakron or Rogue Galakron, where like they reverted the nerfs like a week before the expansion. Basically nerf Deck of Lunacy now, and then like a month before it's about to rotate out, when it's a balanced card again, revert the nerfs and it'll be fine. Probably. Yeah. That's something that I think would be interesting. But other people are just concerned that the card's gonna die because they say it's a fun card. And like, it is. When I played it last year when it wasn't broken, I'd play it for content. I'd be like, let's just play Deck of Lunacy Mage and see what happens. It wasn't good at the time. I'd have like a 45% win rate with it, but it was fun. And yeah, I like the card, which is why it kind of sucks that I hate it so much now, personally, because it just didn't, it hasn't always been this way.
Yeah, I totally get that. I mean, the thing with the card is that you have 2 types of players, or many types of players, but we'll break it down to 2. You have the players that are looking to exert their will and skill, and then you're having those players that are looking to just have fun and chill out and just whatever. The problem is that for me, I'm like a player that wants to have fun in Hearthstone, but I don't want to have that kind of fun, right? I don't want to just play that kind of fun. So I've always said this, this, and I'll say it again, is that the developers at Hearthstone, they're good, they do their thing, but they have a different idea of what is fun and what is not.
They're gearing towards casuals.
Yeah,
just
but
in general, yeah.
It's just not fun though. It's like it's fun, not fun for me. So I'm kind of in the middle of those two types of players. Like I like to exert my skill and will and do whatever I do, but I also like to have fun doing it. And the fun for me is just different. Like we've talked about it before. When you go to a baseball game, you're sitting there, you might have fun, but it's a different kind of fun from when you're playing chess. You're not like jumping up and hooting and hollering and screaming. They're both entertaining, but they're just not.
They're different types of fun for different people.
Yeah, so.
And there'll always be like differing opinions, and there's always going to be the other side of people who, like I was talking to on Twitter basically, who like the card and enjoy the card because they think it's fun. They don't have a lot of dust, so they can basically just make this one Deck of Lunacy card and make their deck all of a sudden good, and they can play it on a kind of budget. Because most of the cards aren't that expensive in that deck either. Like it's a pretty cheap deck from what I, assuming you're not running the Cthulhu version, because there is a Cthulhu version that runs a couple more spells. But if I look at my version right now, it's only about 6,600 dust, and that's including Cthulhu. Like it's about a 5,000 dust deck without Cthulhu, which is not that expensive. Like that's doable for a casual player to make a good meta deck, because they only really need the one legendary. And obviously like Combustion's an epic, they can take that out. Hearthstone Deck Tracker doesn't take into consideration cards you get for free, so like Flame Strike, it's counting it as an epic that costs 800 dust, I think. So technically the dust cost of this is more like 4,000, and you can take out a couple of the cards. So like there are obviously reasons why the deck is the way that it is and why it's being played so much, and it's not just because it's broken, it's also because it's cheap. It's why other like Stealth Aggro Rogue was played a ton, not just because it was strong, but because it was ridiculously cheap and literally required like no legendaries after Edwin was nerfed, and it didn't run that card anymore. Like there are underlying things for every single meta, and right now it's just the pool of cards is smaller, so this card is able to take advantage more of the meta, and it's cheap, so anybody can really play it. And people who like playing casually will play this because they're like, oh, it's random and fun, but then also competitive people will play it because they're like, oh, it's really strong, and all of these things added together just make it really, really oppressive. Whereas I used to like playing, I found it more fun, and I find these kind of decks more fun when they're not good and not played all the time, because when it works, it's like there's a higher high, it's like, oh, I broke the meta, I did something fun and cool, I did some random shenanigans, and I'm assuming the opponent wouldn't be as mad either, and I wouldn't be as mad if I lost to a ridiculous deck if I like never saw it before, right? Like I played against a Death Rattle Demon Hunter, and I lost, but I was like, that was the first or second Death Rattle Demon Hunter I've seen this entire expansion, and I don't even mind losing to that, because like it was a fun thing to experience, and I don't know, when I lose or just play as decks that are kind of a little bit more ridiculous but are less played, it just is more rewarding and more fun to me because it's just like more unique.
Right. Well, let me say that I had said those exact words to you once before. So we were talking about the Silas Warrior with the OTK on the Silas Warrior. And I remember saying that to you, and you were like, yeah, well, it's fun once, right? So it really backs up what you said then is that it's fun when you see it for the first time and you're like, whoa, that's crazy. Let me try that, right? But
maybe not. Yeah.
But the problem with Deck of Lunacy is that
it's every time.
It's a lot. It's more often, but you can't try exactly what they did because the cards that are in the deck are randomly generated. You don't necessarily get that same wow thing. It's just kind of like, so omitting that, you don't, there is no archetype. It's kind of just it is just so random.
It's just random.
It's just
random stuff.
It's crazy.
It really is.
It's lunatic. It's true to its form. I'm not going to defend Hearthstone in Deck of Lunacy or in Catcher's Flow or why this nerf deck came out. I'll be honest with you, I'm not happy about it. I haven't played Hearthstone since the beginning of this expansion. I played for...
Wait, really?
Well, it's exaggeration. I'm saying I haven't played it any real extent. I played the other day and I did 20 games. 18 were against Mage.
There's no way that it was 18.
18.
I mean, I play a lot, and it's a about 50% for me. But 18 out of 20, I'd be done with Hearthstone until there's a nerf, honestly. If it were 18, 90% of my decks against Mage, I would have been done before I even got to 20 games. I'd be at like 12 and be like, yep, okay, this isn't working out. I'm done for streaming today and probably the rest of the week.
I posted it on Twitter and somebody jokingly came back and, hey man, you got to learn how to play around it. And I was
Dude, I love that meme. Every time people tell, like, oh my gosh, I get that every single time something happens in when I'm streaming and something ridiculous happens. The chat is just spamming, should have played around it. And I'm like, you're right. I should have played around them flooding the board with Glowfly Swarm because they're spell mage, so all of their stuff is spells anyway. Glowfly Swarm into Soul of the Forest into a pump, and then next turn killing me with Survival of the Fittest. Like, should have played around it.
Yeah, like Igor, you're just a horrible player. Look at you can't play around
you're
that.
Just garbage.
Yeah, what a garbage player. But yeah, I mean it's indefensible. Like the card, like you said.
Wow, I think that's a lot of mages. I'm looking at your post right now. That's a lot of losses too. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm looking and that's like 1 in 10, 1 in 11,
and it's prefaced by saying not every streamer, content creator, and Hearthstone player would ever post this on as a win rate. I'm like, look at the win rate. That's just half of it. That was the start. I went on after that to say, okay,
God,
it's gotta
I'd be
stop.
done. I would be done after this. Oh my God,
I'm not done.
We should put this in the video. We should, when we're starting to talk, we should just be like, boom, this is what we're talking about.
I will.
My God.
Yeah, I'll get it in there. Oh my goodness. I know.
God.
It's just despicable and it's embarrassing. But I was like, you know what? Sometimes you got to face that demon and put it out there for everybody to see the demon. And it's just so I put it out there because you know what? Because that's fun for me. This show is very fun for me. This is what Hearthstone is fun. And the strategizing and stuff. Like Deck of Lunacy, it's gotta go. It's gonna go. I just wonder what they're gonna do. I think the best solution is what you said. I think you made an extremely great point that just destroy the card now and then have a nice
bring it back like next expansion, I guess, when there's a little bit of a better pool of cards, or not better, but like wider pool,
right? Like it's
deeper pool, something like that.
Deeper,
more, wider.
Yes. Yeah, that sounds right. But yeah, that makes sense to me because if you do that, you don't really you get that, you could get that excitement again, and then actually like it might be also, it will show them too how many people might be excited for Deck of Lunacy to come back. And
because that's true too. They'd be hyped to like bring it back. And they could like bring it back in like the middle of the expansion, like not when everything's released, but like once the meta gets a little bit stale again, they're like, we're bringing it back. Or like we're bringing it back in a maybe still a little bit nerfed in a nerfed way, but like not as nerfed as they probably will. Like if they nerf this card and they're like, okay, this card now costs 7 mana, it's unplayable. But then, when they re-release it, they're like, okay, we're re-releasing it, but it's going to be 3 mana instead of 2 now, so it's going to be a little bit worse. Like, I feel like something like that would be interesting.
Yeah, and what it'll do, though, is people, like the casual players, though, will probably be up in a roar. But the thing is maybe there are some other really good cards that can be back in the meta or played in the meta when the mini set comes out. Hopefully there will be another mini set. And there's a lot of really cool things about Hearthstone, like Warrior class, for example, has some really cool cards, but they just have no support. The secret package is busted, but
we haven't even talked about any of the other, mostly just Paladin and like Rogue and stuff, but we haven't even, or Penflinger or Watch Post. There's so many other things that have made the meta so stale already.
I hate to say it, man. I could try very much to want to play the game in it, but for like I said, you see that Twitter post, you'll get the feeling. I also had one point went against the same thing with the Shaman, Evolve Shaman. I had it 83% of my games were against Evolve Shaman back in the day with Bogspine. But I had a counter for that. And I think just to justify what I was saying about that, back then I had a counter. So I created a counter. I did a nice control warlock and was able to counter that deck, and that was great. With the thing with Mage is that there are counters to the Mage deck, which is just basically smack it in the face and just destroy it.
Just face hunter to kill them before they high roll and hope they don't get it super crazy,
And those are just not fun archetypes for me to play. That's just me. I don't enjoy playing that thing. Hey guys, I'm not putting you down. If you like Base Hunter, or if you like smacking,
Yeah, there's no problem with it. Also, it's cheap, so a lot of you guys like might need to do it because you don't want to put money into the game. Like, that's totally fine.
Yeah.
I also like aggro, or at least used to a pretty decent amount when I was free to play.
Yeah, and the thing is, though, aggro is, we've talked about it before, just to justify, I feel like I'm walking on eggshells all the time with this, but aggro is not an easy deck to play.
Problem. It's not easy, yeah.
It's not easy. It's not just like, oh, mindless, whatever. It's hard to play, but it's just not enjoyable for me. So that's my full disclosure on the record. You heard it here first. Venga is not necessarily an aggro player, and I do think it's a skill deck. So don't hate me.
Yeah. We were talking about Twitter posts, and I don't know if you saw mine where I was like, this is a healthy meta, where it showed Paladin, 58% win rate. Mage, 53% win rate. And then the third best class in the game was Hunter, which Hunter and Rogue kind of counter Mage because they go face a lot. Those two decks, Hunter and Rogue, 48% win rate. When the third and fourth best classes in the game don't even have a 50% win rate and it's not an even spread like that, there's something wrong.
Well, here's the thing, though. I wanted to ask you this question. You'll have an answer. I know this. You may not have the right answer, but...
I don't have the right answer. I'm super smart. Super smart.
He's the cheat.
Little sleep deprived because I was so excited about the show I couldn't sleep very well last night, but I'll get it right, no problem.
Sleep deprived Ecor at 80% is 100% smarter than most people on the planet. Anyway, the question is, what deck or decks do you think when these two decks, Paladin and Mage, will take over? Remember you said that? All right, so we're going to get on over to the other video that's on my channel. It's the second half of the Hearthstone meta hype. I promise you it won't be as long as this one because I'm going to say my not so popular opinion. I'm trying to make that up right now as it is. I'm trying to form an opinion.
I am ready to fight you if you say anything positive about Mage. I will throw hands, honestly.
Having watched this episode, do you think there's anything positive that I could say about Mage? But we'll see you.
Well, you said you have an unpopular opinion. I don't know what it is.
All right, let's get on over there.